Hello and welcome back to the channel, and also Happy New Year by the time you're watching this. Since it's the first video 2024, I'd thought I'd make a video of one of my projects I've been working on that is historical and also a bit of a personal project. I'm also currently recovering from the flu, so please excuse my voice, and I hope I still sound somewhat passable. So, as some of you may know, I am massively into genealogy. I've got my tree. I also do trees for other people. I've done autosomal testing, which is the kind of test you see on adverts from companies like Ancestry or 23andMe. Sometimes you get them for your birthday or Christmas, and then you never touch it again after you get your ethnicity results. I've done haplogroup testing, which tests your chromosomes. I don't have a Y chromosome to test, but I have tested my dad. So I've had my X tested, and I've had his X and Y tested as well. I can go into the specifics of these tests another time if anyone's interested in our region, but the reason I brought them up is that I was actually contacted quite a few years ago by a man who was conducting a one-name study. These are often groups where people try and find the connection or origin of a surname. He ran this group over on family tree DNA, which is where who do a lot of the haplogroup DNA testing, and asked if I'd thought about getting my dad tested and joining his surname project. We did, and also last year we upgraded my dad to his full big Y result as well. Currently I think it's him and maybe two other guys on his results, not many. But I didn't really find the group that active. So even now it's only something I only really check every now and then. So fast forward, and I'm just working on my husband's side of the tree after smashing down a massive brick wall we were stuck with for years, and I come across a weird surname. And I like to Google any surnames you don't normally hear these days to see if I can find a weird origin or meaning. And I come across this webpage, which was part of the Guild of One Name Studies. Decided to have a little browse about and tried to search for my maiden name, but no match. No one was registered with the guild under the name, so I made the active decision to apply for guild membership after learning more about the process. See, with normal genealogy, you're doing something that you would call a particular pedigree, which is where you are looking to find out the ancestors of one person, i.e. yourself, or maybe, your mum or your dad, and you work your way up. Or you're looking for the descendancy, where you would find all the descendants that have come from one person or a particular couple. A one-name study is so much of a broader scope because in the example of my case, I was born a Thorpe. I have Thorpe aunt and uncles, cousins and ancestors, but I would also need to look beyond my family pedigree and also document unrelated Thorpes as well. To quote the guild directly themselves, the purpose of a one-name study is not just about the collection of data. Its aim is to research the genealogy and family history of all persons with a given surname and its linked variants. A study may concentrate on aspects such as the geographical distribution of the name and the changes in that distribution over the centuries, or may attempt to reconstruct the genealogy of as many lines as possible bearing the name. A frequent aspiration is to identify a single original location of the name, especially if the name appears to derive from a place name. So, as you could probably tell, this is an absolute mammoth task, given how many people are in the world, which only hit me after I started the project, and I thought, why have I done this to myself? The best way I can explain the concept to people would be, if your surname was Brown or Smith or another really typical common surname, meeting another person with the same surname isn't that weird. Now, if you have a really uncommon surname like Nan Collis, and you meet another Nan Collis, who you know isn't a cousin or some sort of long-lost sibling, you would understandably think, even if it's just for a brief meeting, hang on a second, I'm a Nan Collis, who are you? But you see, now this is where we start to get into the trouble with surnames, because they also come in different types. You have occupational surnames, which are based on your skills or job that your ancestor had. Patronymic, which is passed down from your father's first name. Toponymic, which can also have sub-branches, but these are generally based on location and can include names from like estates as well. You have clan surnames, which were adopted from those within the clan. Epithet, by name or nicknames given by the local community. Napoleonics code surnames, which were assigned based on the tax level of your family. Matronymic, which is passed down from the mother's first name. Cognominal surnames were given based on looks or personality. Ornamental surnames were given when people needed to adopt a name where they wouldn't have had one before, maybe from the culture, and sometimes these were where they were trying to mimic the upper class or if they needed to choose their own names. In the case of Thorpe though, this is a toponymic habitational surname. A thorp was a farmstead or a small village that relied on a larger settlement nearby for protection. It's actually considered part of Old Norse or Old Danish, which is its original form, used the thorn letter instead of the th. At the moment, there are about 77,134 people that have this surname in the world, with the highest amount being in the US, which would probably be a given the size of the land, but the highest density is actually in St. Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha, where 1 in 344 people are a Thorpe. This is actually about 17 people. It's not a big place. But until a little while ago, the highest and main location during the 19th century was Yorkshire, where my line's from. They were also found in Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire and Lincolnshire, with smaller numbers found down further south along the East Anglian coast. Because of this, the goal of finding a single origin person who started the Thorpe line would be impossible. But you can use the study for other means, like occupations, mortality rates, areas with high density of the surname, and possibility at some points to connect some branches. There are other aims I've looked at as well, but it is still in the very early planning stages. Like any study, I require a lot of data, so I started with my line since I already have it well documented, and I've also already started to branch out to other lines unrelated to me so far from my local area, and also further afield, although still contained within the UK for now. The guild actually has levels to it, to each study, to tell how far from infancy the project's grown, so the project will go up in levels as I start going to like other countries and stuff for the research. One of the things I love about genealogy is that when you find that new link, that new name of a person who you've come from but never met, they've existed, and you finally uncovered the little tidbits of their life, so it's almost like bringing them back for a little while, and sometimes certain people just stick in my brain. For example, some of the names that float about are Susanna Speed, Amelia Underhill, or even my husband's favourite from his line, Fanny Whiffen, for obvious reasons. It was for this reason though that I thought, why don't I include little biographies as I do my study for the Thorpes that catch my eye. The guild studies are entirely private, using already widely available public information, with the end goal of being publication in some form on where the journey takes me. So I thought for today's video I would write an example using my grandfather Harry Thorpe to showcase what I hope to achieve with other individuals. Harry Thorpe was born in Ardsley, Barnsley in Yorkshire on the 13th of March 1901 as the fourth son and fifth child overall of Charles Edward Thorpe and his wife Amelia Underhill, and he would end up with 9 siblings, although only 6 would actually reach adulthood with him, as were the conditions at that time. Harry would apprentice and follow in his father's footsteps as a trained glassblower, which was one of the largest occupations in Barnsley at that time. If you look closely at Barnsley's coats of arms, it depicts both a miner and a glassblower, and was put on the map because of these occupations. By his teenage years, his father Charles had moved the family from Yorkshire to London, where Harry decided to enlist himself in the army at the age of 19, in 1920. He would fully join the regimental army a year later and served until he was 28 in the January of 1930. Following the end of his military career, Harry ended his military service as a Lance Corporal and returned to civilian life, where he would meet his future wife, Ivy Georgina Lillian Bertram, and they married each other in 1935 at Custom House in West Ham, where at the time they only lived a few doors down from each other. After the wedding, they moved into their first marital home at 19 King Street in Plaistow, London, where they began their family with their first child being born in 1936, and their second at the start of World War II in 1939. Harry stayed with his family for as long as possible while working as an explosive munitions factory worker, where he would end up saving the life of a woman and those around him when he managed to stop a munition from going off due to worker negligence. But he would go on to lose his mother in 1940, and Ivy and his children would eventually evacuate, with their third child being born while they were staying in Lancashire in 1942. It was at this point that Harry had made the decision to do his part for his country once again at the age of 42. So he rejoined the army, despite sustaining 2 injuries while serving this time. He served until they deemed him permanently unfit for military service in 1946, after the war had ended, as he had developed bilateral osteoarthritis in his shoulders. Now that the war was over, Ivy and his children returned to London, where they were finally reunited, and their final child was also born in 1950. By this point, the government had begun to build and develop what would come to be known as Harlow New Town in Essex, part of their commitment to rehouse families who had lost their homes in the Blitz or could no longer afford the rising costs of staying in London. Harry and his family uprooted with Julie the dog and moved to the newly built town in 1953, but kept his job in London. He would walk from Harlow to Epping to allow him to ride the train into London, return back to Epping at the end of his work shift, and do the long walk back to Harlow, which amounted to him walking 10.4 miles a day, just to and from the train station, and not including any of his shift time or to commute while in London. Harry would eventually get to stop this long daily SAS level trek and enjoy his retirement at home, but would come to develop carcinoma of the lungs and pass away at home on the 19th of March 1972 at the age of 71. He was survived by his wife Ivy, their 4 children, and at the time of his death, 11 grandchildren, although he would actually go on to have a total of 14 grandchildren, 17 great-grandchildren, and at the time of me writing and recording this, 3 second great-grandchildren. Although my grandfather Harry is no longer with us, and I never got the chance to meet him, he still lives on in the memories of my father and my aunts and uncles, and so of my older cousins. And that was just an example of the type of biography I would like to introduce to my study. I could allow it to be somewhat more detailed because I had the benefit of being able to ask questions to those who knew him, but largely the information come from public records that I could use to piece together his life, like census records, as well as other records I could only obtain by contacting places like the Ministry of Defence or the MOD here in the UK, since his military records hadn't been released yet. If anyone would like to submit and help my project in any way, if you're a Thorpe, or if you know a Thorpe, then please get in touch. I would love to hear from you wherever you are in the world. I know some of my family relatives do watch my videos, so I hope you guys also enjoy it. Maybe enjoy the little biography I put together for Harry or Grandad during my research. I currently have 600 plus Thorpes in my study, mostly deceased, and I know you guys are out there, and together we can help paint in the picture of how we got to where we are now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. It's not quite regular history, but I thought it might be nice to share with you something I've been working on for a while. And let's get this year started off strong. Please don't forget to share, like and subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, or totally contact me through my socials. The next video will be back to our more normal programming, but I will try to keep you guys up to date with my study as well from time to time as I make more progress. Take care everyone, and bye bye.